So this is a video that I've been wanting to make for a little bit now. I am no stranger to being like bullied or made fun of at school, or even just when I'm out in public doing my own thing sometimes. I'm definitely not intending for this video to get very sad or in-depth or emotional in any way. I just figured I would share a few little stories from over the years. So I'm queer, and I'm very open about that. Like, people at my school know. I'm still in school, actually. I am 19, but I did not make it through my senior year, so I am technically in like 13th grade. I wish I could say like, at least it's better now, but no, like it's still not good. For a little bit of context, I am queer, and also, clearly, I like dressing in, like, my main favorite kind of fashion is more like pastel, like J fashion inspired, I guess. I just find it incredibly comforting, and I like the way it looks, and it makes me happy, so that's how I dress. And I live in Texas, so the people at my school don't seem to appreciate that very much. I'm no stranger to having people make rude comments about my outfit or like take pictures and videos of me on their phone, and that is very annoying, but that's not what I'm here to talk about right now. Has anyone else watching this been barked at? Because I swear, me and like all of my other friends, mainly like my friends who are into more alternative fashion, get barked at. Like, I think it started because of chokers, like wearing chokers. People would call them dog collars, and then they would bark at anyone wearing them. But it turned from that to just barking at any person in alternative fashion to eventually just barking at anyone for being queer. In my area, it always feels like it comes back to, well, it's because you're queer, but that's not the point. I just find that so bizarre. Like, you think somebody looks weird, so you're gonna straight up act like an animal to try to make fun of them. Like, I'm not the weird one after that. You're barking at me. I am not the weird one anymore. I've also had my fair share of people making just dumb, like bigoted, overused, unoriginal jokes at me. And there's just this one time I remember, because he'd walked up to me and said like, "You identify as a man? I identify as a squirrel." And like making all of his friends giggle. And I just said like, "Oh, that's great. You should identify as a joke so you'll be funny." And the look on his face switched so fast. He was so shocked. It's so funny. They never expect that you're actually gonna respond, let alone with something actually original, you know? I also had a moment where I was walking with my friend in the hallway, and they were wearing like fishnet tights with their outfit. And this guy behind us was saying like, "Your feet are caught in your fishing net." And he would not shut up. And I think I flipped him off. So he knew like we were annoyed with him, but he would not shut up. He was like, "Your feet are caught in your fishing net." And finally I just turned around and was like, "Why are you so obsessed with their feet? Like, it's kind of weird that you're so into their feet." He shut up real fast. Actually, no, he didn't shut up. He got mad. He was like, "I didn't say that." We were like, okay, getting a little defensive. It was really funny. Like, he was really defensive. It kind of became an inside joke between us from that point on of like, he was definitely into feet, because otherwise there's no way he would have gotten that mad. There was this one guy who hated me, like, really bad. It felt like every time he saw me, he had to say something. I remember one time, the way we graded our assignments for like that class period was the teacher just handed random students random other students' papers, and we all graded each other's papers, and he just so happened to get mine. And it's really weird because I could hear him laughing and being like, "Look whose paper I got." I got 100 on that assignment, so I don't know what was so funny to him anyway. Just the fact that he was holding my paper was hilarious to him. I had this moment where I said something to somebody else, not even him, just somebody else. He saw me talking to somebody, and he got really mad at that, I guess. I think it's because somebody else barked at me and they wouldn't stop, and so I turned around and I was like, oh my god, are you a furry? No, there's nothing wrong with being a furry. I have a fursona. I just like to say that to them sometimes because it always stops them, and they always get so surprised when you ask them that. And this guy, I'm not gonna say his name, I'll call him Hunter, I guess. So Hunter walked up to me and he was like, oh my god, you're talking about furries? That's so weird. I was like, okay, bud, yeah. And he wouldn't shut up. And for some reason that, like, he was mad that I wasn't reacting much to him. So he kept being like, okay, well, you're a lesbian. By the way, I was male identifying at the time. I've gone on my own little journey over the years to find out who I am, and at this point, I'm comfortable with anything, honestly. I'm comfortable with any pronouns or any label, I guess. But at the time, I wasn't even, like, female identifying, so it was just really funny, because he was like, okay, well, you're a lesbian. I was like, I'm not even a woman. Of course, he was also transphobic, so that meant nothing to him. He was just like, oh, okay, like that changes anything. Like, just being over the top ignorant about it. The thing is, I could tell he was getting pissed off, and he's gotten physical with people before, like people I know, so I didn't want to deal with that. But there was one point where I don't want to say what he said just because I find it kind of gross, but he was like, how are you gonna get on your knees and please a girl like that? And I was so tempted to just be like, the same way you would get on your knees and please a guy, Hunter. I know it would have been a decent comeback, but the thing is, like, he was seething, so I just decided, you know what, now's not the time. Now's not the time to be funny. Now's the time to try not to get punched by an emotionally unstable cowboy. Being the one who has gone on kind of my own journey discovering what gender I am most comfortable identifying as, I have experienced a lot of transphobia, not even just from students, but like from teachers sometimes. I feel like anyone else who is trans or who had a period where they were experimenting with their identity, a substitute teacher is like your worst nightmare because they're going to dead name you and you're going to have to say out loud, here, and then everyone's gonna be like, name and face, and then they're gonna associate you with that name, and it's like a nightmare. And like realistically, they're probably not even gonna care depending on like who you're surrounded by. They might not even care, but it's just like the possibility, you know? But the kind of person I am, I've never had a problem saying like, oh, it's Edgar. I don't really get mad at subs for that because like the teachers don't always leave a note saying, hey, this student prefers this. They don't really have a way of knowing automatically like what name you prefer. They're just reading the paper, so I'll always just be like, oh, it's Edgar. But I've had moments where I would stop like before class and I would say like, hey, could you maybe like call roll by last names or something like that? I had this one sub who I asked that. I was like, hey, can you call roll by last names maybe? And she was like, she gave me like a dirty look and she was like, is it really that big of a deal? I try not to be too reactive in situations like that. I was just kind of like, you see, miss, I'm trans. I don't want to be referred to by the name that's on that paper. If it wasn't a big deal, I wouldn't be asking you to do it. And she was just like, okay. And then the moment she started calling roll, she immediately stood up and gave a little monologue about, I'm going to use the government name. I'm going to use the names on this paper, and I don't care if you have a problem with it. That's what's written down. I don't even know what to say about that. That's just insane. And that's how I felt in that moment too. And so I decided maybe she just doesn't understand. Maybe I could try to help her understand. And so I wrote her a note explaining like, it's not just a nickname, like being trans For me personally, I always experienced a lot of like dysphoria. I tried to really get the message across of like, hey, if a student, or if anyone honestly says, hey, this is the name that I prefer, please don't call me the name that's written down there, it's pretty important to listen to them and to not call them the name that they don't want to be called. But somehow or another, I think that was the incident where somebody started the rumor that I wrote a letter to a substitute teacher telling her that I would kill myself because she dead named me. So no, if you know me from school and that's something that you're thinking, the rumors are not true in the slightest. I might be a little petty sometimes, but not I'm going to kill myself because you dead named me kind of petty. I know I've been pretty lighthearted. I have had a lot of really negative encounters being bullied. That's just not the kind of video that I feel like making, at least not right now. I might make one later, I don't know. But in all seriousness, that kind of thing is never okay. I don't care how weird somebody dresses, like how much you hate the way they dress. That's one of the main reasons people make fun of me right now, is because I like pastel fashion. It's comforting to me. And the thing is, you don't have to like somebody else's fashion. But that doesn't mean they have to know that you don't like it. I see some kids every now and then in the hallway who my first thought seeing their outfit is like, wow, that's a really bad outfit. And you know what I do? Nothing. I don't pull my phone out and start recording them. I don't start saying something to them or to my friend, doing that thing where I'm talking about them where I know that they can hear me. I hate when people do that so much. Like, they'll talk about you out loud where they know you can hear them. But if you try to say anything, they'll just be like, I wasn't talking to you. You know what you're doing. Stop it. In my first senior year, I had this math class where I had these, like, it was like 3 girls and then like 1 or 2 guys who just loved making fun of me. My style was actually kind of the opposite of how it is now. It wasn't very pastel-y, it was actually more on the edgy side. I don't know how I would describe it. Maybe like, well, I didn't identify as a girl at the time, so not e-girl, but it was that kind of look. I would say e-boy, but I feel like that has a whole nother vibe to it, you know? Not the point. E-kid, I've heard people say that. It was that kind of vibe. It was like 2020, 2021, I think. But they never ever shut up just like making fun of me because I dressed alternatively. Even some of the other alternative kids in the school would make fun of me because they were like the sophisticated goth kids and I was the cringy, like, bunny hat, over-accessorized candy kid who listened to Mother Mother and Jack Stauber. Okay, what does that matter? That's still alternative. Alt people making fun of other alt people is still annoying. That's just as annoying as, like, the Lululemon girls making fun of us, you know? That's still making fun of somebody. And in that same note, it's just as bad if you're making fun of somebody's fashion for being too basic, by the way. I say Lululemon girls, that's not slender. There's nothing inherently wrong with that just because it's not a fashion that I like. But they would constantly do that. Like, they would talk about me like I wasn't even there. It was so overwhelming. Looking back, I can laugh about it because, like, it was so stupid. They were absolutely insane. But at the time, it was really overwhelming. Like, I would have like a panic attack every day knowing that I had to go and sit in that class and listen to them the entire time. And like, yeah, I know they didn't even get physical with me or anything, but that's not the only way to hurt somebody. I had more than one occasions where before and even sometimes after that class period, I would go hide out in the counselor's office and just cry. Because it wasn't just them bullying me either. If it was just that group, it probably wouldn't have been that overwhelming, but it was like, it felt like everyone in the school plus those 3 girls, and it was just too much. And the thing is, they probably didn't even think twice about it. They were just like, oh, it's just a funny little joke, it's not that big of a deal. they probably never even stopped to consider how it was affecting me. That's the thing about people like that. They love to make fun of other people and they never stop to consider, hey, I'm making them feel horrible, you know? And like, yeah, I'm no stranger to it. I've been bullied since like the 3rd grade, all the way up until now. Yeah, I'm used to it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't affect me at all, you know? I mean, like, just earlier this week, I had this group of girls loudly talk about me and start filming me at lunch. Like, that's so scummy. I don't care how somebody's dressed. Don't record them. Don't talk about them where you know they can hear it. Don't keep staring at them from across the room. You're making them feel like shit. I personally try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. I like to think, well, I don't know what they're going through. Maybe those girls are miserable and that is the only joy that they get in their day. And that doesn't make it right, and that doesn't mean that they should keep doing it. But it does give me like, why would they do that, you know? And sometimes that's all that I can really do to try to comfort myself is like, well, you never know, maybe they're miserable, you know?